Hi, my name is Andrew Penner. I'm a professor of sociology and a member of the steering committee for What Matters to Me and Why here at UCI. And it is my great honor today to introduce our speaker, Dr. Frances Contreras, who serves as the dean at UCI's School of Education. Frances received her bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley, a master's from Harvard, and a PhD from Stanford, and has written extensively on questions around equity and access in education, ranging from preschool all the way through higher education, which was really remarkable. Um, Much of her work focuses on questions related to Latinos' higher education. And her first book, The Latino Education Crisis, I think embodies so much of what I admire about Frances's scholarship. It's a really incisive commentary. It's a call to action. Where much of social science scholarship sort of describes crises without offering solutions. In the Latino education crisis, Frances offers really thoughtful and compelling policy solutions in a super highly approachable way. So highly recommend it. Frances's work has been supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, and she spent time at the Bellagio Center. And prior to coming to UC Irvine, Frances was at UC San Diego, where she served as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And before that, directed a Center on Higher Education at the University of Washington. Frances is the first Chicana Latina dean of a school of education in the UC system. And I think as remarkable as Frances's outstanding academic contributions are her contributions to the broader community. And I think, one of the things that was sort of remarkable and stood out to me was that among her many accolades and honors, the city of San Diego named December 17, 2021 as Dr. Frances Contreras Day, in recognition of these many contributions to the broader community. So I am just so delighted to have Frances here today and hope that you will please join me in welcoming Dean Frances Contreras.
Thank you so much. We're just getting the PowerPoint set up. Buenas tardes. It's great to see you all today. I know everyone's busy and coming up after a long weekend. Is it okay? We're just trying to, I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. So the PowerPoint is pretty important because it's a lot of writing. I'm really honored to be speaking to you all today about my journey and then as a leader, what really matters to me and how I have come to UCI. So let's start with the land acknowledgement. There is no one set land acknowledgement. I know we have a new vice chancellor, but this is, based on a few different land acknowledgements. So it was my best take on a land acknowledgement for UCI. So it's very much a draft. It's not the School of Education's yet, or we haven't, pursued that yet. So here's my take at a land acknowledgement. The University of California Irvine campus is located on the homelands of the Ashaman and Tongva peoples, who in the face of ongoing settler colonialism continue to claim their place and act as stewards of their ancestral lands, as they have for the past 8,000 years. We recognize and respect that the UCI School of Education and UC Irvine is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Ashaman and Tongva peoples. This region extends from the Santa Ana River to Aliso Creek and beyond. As a land-grant institution member, we acknowledge the Ashaman and Tongva people as traditional land caretakers whose efforts to steward and protect the land continue today. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us here today. And so this is very much in line with who I am and honoring our past and honoring place and space. As a leader, I think it's really important to do that because many generations have come before us and have nurtured and fostered this land. I also want to dedicate this talk today to a colleague I went to graduate school with, and that is Dr. Tatiana Malguiso. She passed away last week, was an amazing scholar in higher education, and her memorial is today. But I felt it was really important to be here and to deliver this talk, so I won't be attending her memorial. I'll be logging on to the stream later. But I want to dedicate this talk to her because she was an amazing mentor, scholar, and role model to many in the field of higher education. So let's go forward. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a bit about my journey, and some of you have heard it, but I have different takes on it, so hopefully it's much more interesting in person. Many of you know I grew up in Norwalk, California, which is very close to here. In fact, my parents still live in our childhood home. I visit them frequently. I am both the daughter of a Teamster and a veteran, and you'll see my parents there in the center. In fact, I come from a long line of veterans in my family. My grandparents served in World War II, and then my dad had 9 brothers. We always used to joke that my grandma had a baseball team. Well, much of that baseball team, I believe it was 7, were drafted during the Vietnam War era, and they all served honorably, even though they had very different plans, very different viewpoint in terms of how they wanted to, use their 20s, but they served honorably. And so I come from a long line of service, a long line of veterans. I am a first-generation Chicana. For those of you that may not know that term, it's a woman of Mexican descent, but who's also politically engaged and very active in community and the world around you. I started at a UC for undergrad, so you might see me looking a bit younger with very big hair 20 years ago. I am an alum of Cal, of UC Berkeley, and some of those key lessons, I think one of the single most important decisions in my life that I made was choosing a UC. And I think that's what's always brought me back to the UC system. I've been at many different campuses, as you heard, but I was also a postdoc at UC Davis. What always brings me back to UC is the belief in mobility, is what the UC system has given to me. And now it's just such an incredible honor to be at UC Irvine, where my cousins have attended, where my cousins' children are currently, where I have such a connection to the region. But I really believe in the power of the UC system and UC campuses. And then also being part of a university, of a school where the chancellor admires, believes, and really fulfills our mission to be a public university that serves everyone as a first-generation student himself. And so it's really critical and important to me to be in that space and to give back to a system that's given so much to me. And so while at UC Berkeley, while at another UC, my mentor, and some of the things that I engaged in, because I know there's some undergrads here today, I really focused on being curious. And at that time, our student advising was a bit more loose. And we could just go and explore many different majors. So by the time I was a junior, when I should have declared, I had changed my major probably 8 times because I was exploring. I know that this undergrads are like, what? So there's hope. I had changed my major at least 8 times. I had taken all the things they tell you not to do, I did. I took 19 units. I was working 3 jobs. I mean, I always say first-gen students founded the gig economy. Now it's trendy, but we were doing it back then. I always had 3 jobs. I was always hustling and working multiple jobs. But one of the things that I look back on my career that made a difference for me was that I was curious, and I asked questions, and I sought mentors. I knew enough to know what I didn't know. And that comes from the humility that exists within my family, that comes from the humility of understanding that the world is bigger than us. And of course, we all take our work seriously, but it's important not to take ourselves so seriously at all times. And I also learned the importance of internships. I see people here from the business school, and we talk that language all the time about the importance of undergraduate research and undergraduate internships. For me, undergraduate internships and research apprenticeships were life-changing. Life-changing. Professor Moran, and I'll describe her in a moment, Professor Moran took me on as an undergraduate scholar in the McNair program. I'm not sure if anyone knows what the McNair program is. It's a long-standing undergraduate research program. And she was a young law professor at the time, and I wanted to study policy and education policy. In fact, the impact of the 3 strikes you're out law on educational mobility for juvenile offenders. And so it was a very specific topic. She agreed to mentor me. And I tell you, that summer I was so afraid of her. I was working so hard that summer. I worked harder that summer than I did in any course at Cal because I wanted to impress her, and I wanted to hone in my research skills, and I wanted to be a good writer so that I was making her proud, because she would be listed on the McNair Journal along with my article. And From that experience, starting in my sophomore year with Professor Moran, I really learned the value of continuing to ask those questions, continuing to seek out those that had a level of expertise that I didn't have. Fast forward to today, Professor Moran was a law dean, the dean of the UCLA School of Law. She continues to be my mentor, and now she is here at UC Irvine. She was one of the founding faculty members of the UCI School of Law. And so to come full circle and to see her on any given day walking out of the School of Law and I catch her and say hello, and to see your undergraduate mentor from 20 plus years ago, I don't want to give my age, is just so fulfilling to have that experience, to see someone who invested in me very early on and saw the promise that perhaps I didn't know existed or saw in myself. And so that's my experience, at least in my undergraduate. And I also had access to internships. And in those internships in the policy arena, I had colleagues that were steering me away from going right into the workforce. And they told me I really needed to consider graduate school. And so I had these fortuitous, pivotal relationships, pivotal experiences that it's called in higher education and higher education literature. These pivotal moments in higher education that are they by chance, but it's where opportunity meets experience, right? It's where opportunity meets preparation. And I was very fortunate to work for a series of nonprofit organizations while I was an undergraduate that exposed me to mentors that had me consider the Ivy League, other institutions for graduate training. And so I'm going to fast forward to graduate training, and there you see, I'm going to get further down the pipeline, but there you see me as a young person, curious, always doing things, making up my own recipes, causing mischief, and that's part of my curiosity with my family, but always being true to who I am in my center, and that is my family. In my graduate school journey, I had a mentor. I didn't have as many mentors in my graduate school program, although I had a wonderful experience at Stanford University in terms of the academic preparation. But I was really looking for someone who researched what I researched, that was, could offer that expertise in researching communities of color. And so I sought out, I came back to UC, I came back home, if you will, and sought out a professor at a conference, and she was a professor at the time at UC Davis, Patricia Gandara. And I asked her to coffee, just cold, asked her to coffee to have a conversation, and she agreed at this big national conference that I happened to be presenting at as an early career scholar. And from that coffee and that conversation began a long-standing relationship. And to this day, she's a mentor, she's a confidant, and she's a esteemed professor emeritus at UCLA. And so I tell you about these experiences because it speaks to the importance of mentors. And for me, it speaks to the importance of having women of color that have been mentors, having strong women that have mentored, because they've charted a path, they've followed a path that was uncharted at the time. And then I also want to note, I'll get there later as a leader, that it's just critically important to have that ongoing feedback. And Patricia gave that to me, and she's the co-author, lead author of the book, The Latino Education Crisis, and was the lead author of that entire experience with the Rockefeller Foundation. So I want to make sure I give her that credit because she really showed me that I could be a different sort of academic. I could care about mentoring. I could care about giving back to grad students. I could utilize my grants to fully fund my students. And she just showed me a different way to be an academic, that you could be a mother scholar, right? And here you see my pathway as a daughter, as a sister, as a scholar, as a Chicana activist, as a leader and a wife, and now a mother. And so I saw that in them, and I knew that it was possible. Okay, so let's fast forward to my first academic job, and that is the University of Washington. I had the pleasure of being an assistant professor at the University of Washington and was just amazed at the community that existed in Seattle. And I was like the N of one. I was the one Latina in a college, a big college of 80 plus faculty. And I was that one Latina. There was another Latino faculty member, but the N was 80. So it was a really big college. And I quickly knew if I wanted community, I would need to go and seek it out. If I was going to thrive, I would need to create alliances and collaborations and really think about what I could offer the state of Washington. Geographically and in terms of the population in Washington, they're pretty much 20 to 25 years behind California in terms of their Latinx population. And so I quickly sought an opportunity to really be an advisor to the state, be an advisor to leaders at play that were in the policy arena. And so I became involved with and so this is all the what matters to me, right? It's giving back, what's your center, and being engaged in community. And so I got quickly involved with the Washington State Commission on Hispanic Affairs. I competed to engage in a statewide research project. I built out a team of 13 individuals that were going to travel all throughout the state of Washington to really understand what opportunities to learn look like for not only Latinx, but bilingual, underrepresented students in that state, and was part of a broad group of scholars in the Asian American community, the Native American community, and the African American community that were all asking that same question, and it was funded by the governor of the state of Washington. So again, it's an incredible opportunity, but because I was that N of one, and my research aligned, I was able to really engage in research opportunities that perhaps might not have existed in another context. And so I thought that that was just an incredible opportunity. I became very involved in not only that research, but also within the broader community in Seattle, advising the Seattle mayor, advising various policy contexts. And I can't tell you as a young academic just how remarkable it is when someone listens to you, because you're so used to postgraduate school, perhaps you're used to not necessarily being listened to, and you're used to kind of do this, if you tweak this, and so the grad students are nodding their head. And so to come into my own in terms of my voice as a scholar was really what happened at the University of Washington. Another pivotal moment in Washington, in Seattle, was I was exposed to other very strong women like Ana Mari Cauce, who is now the president of UW. I was exposed to many scholars who were really committed to community research, community engaged research. And I was part of a tri-campus women of color writing group. And in that writing group, these women, we shared our histories, we shared food, we shared our writing goals, we all had writing plans, we all had academic plans, and we supported one another through tenure. We supported one another through our academic trajectories. And that writing group to this day, I think, is largely, in part, responsible due to my tremendous success as an assistant professor in a very big college. So I wanted to give that context. While at the University of Washington, again, I had a very pivotal moment. And I also want to point, I was able to enact some of the lessons, and theoretical approaches to mentoring that perhaps aren't always characteristics of very, high-ranking Research One institutions. And I want to point out a theory and an approach that was introduced to me by a scholar here, Jeanette Castellanos. She's an assistant dean in social sciences. And Dr. Jeanette Castellanos and I wrote about the Latino education pipeline in higher education at the time. And she introduced me to this concept of academic familia, and that is academic family. Once you bring on a student, a graduate student, once you bring on a graduate student, once you bring on researchers, they really do become part of this academic family, in that you're going to go through their academic trajectories with them. And I had that experience in Professor Rachel Moran and with Professor Gandara. And so that concept really resonated with me, that all of these even the undergrad researchers, I'm still writing letters for my undergraduate research team because now they're faculty members. And so when I think about just this conception of academic familias, it's really, really critical, I think, to the success of Latinx students, but it's also successful to first-generation students, immigrant students in higher education that are, again, charting these uncharted waters. And so while at the University of Washington, I had another pivotal moment that was personal and unfortunate. I would fly back every other week because my sister was battling ovarian cancer. And at the point where she was about to pass, and she did pass, I knew that I probably needed to come back to California, right? I needed to come back to California because my family as a daughter, right? My family would need me because in our culture and my family in particular, daughters play a very unique role and a very nurturing role. And I saw just how heartbroken my family was. And so decided I'm going to have to entertain. And at that point, I had turned down probably 4 UCs. And I thought the next one I probably shouldn't turn down. I should at least throw my name in the ring. It's time to go back home to a UC campus. And that campus happened to be the UC San Diego. And there you see on the bottom. At UC San Diego, I had tremendous opportunities, helped that campus really launch into their Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative, was able to come into my own as an associate professor and then a full professor, and also engaged in, and I'm going to forward this now, also engaged in this book all the way to the right, leading a study with an incredible team of scholars, high achieving African American students in the college choice process. So while at UC San Diego, engaged in that research for the UC system. And I think coming back as a tenured professor and then becoming a full professor, all while trying to contribute to the system, this is where I worked with other scholars throughout the UC system to develop and really be part of this leadership collective. And so we started the Latino Advisory Council to President Drake. And so the Chicano Latino Advisory Council to President Drake. And that group has 2 leaders from every system advising on policy, creating conversations around how to really serve first-generation students better. So that's kind of in a nutshell the UC San Diego chapter. Before coming to UC San Diego, however, I got married right around the time after my sister's passing. So I'm a wife of a veteran. Again, this kind of veteran theme of service. And so I'm the wife of a veteran. I'm a mother. I became a mother in Seattle. And of course, I have that identity as being a scholar. And so I just wanted to kind of give you that trajectory of again, family at the center, but also very recurring themes in my life in terms of those pivotal moments. So now at UC Irvine, I serve as a dean of the School of Education. And all of those lessons I learned in leading with the UC system, contributing to the HSI initiative with the UC system, contributing to these larger bodies, as well as my own research on HSIs, on college choice processes, on college persistence and success that you saw in my books. Now I'm in this position to really be a leader that approaches leadership differently. In terms of the questions I'm asking, right? And the impact we can make. And I can't tell you, it's coming into UC Irvine at a time when there are 6 women deans on this campus, when we have vice chancellors who are women. I can't tell you how honored I am to be part of that cadre of strong women and strong leaders. And we support one another. We troubleshoot, we critique one another, to be honest, and it's very, very blunt. But it's been such an incredible experience. I just started my 3rd year, wrapped up 2 years, but I am just so proud to be at an HSI campus. I always said I wanted to end my career at an HSI, and the fact that it came sooner than later was just really fortuitous. And so, while at UCI, I'm just really proud to carry on that legacy. I also want to say that I'm proud to carry on the legacy of the first Latina dean to UC Irvine, which was Dr. Vicky Ruiz. Vicky Ruiz is a distinguished professor of history and Chicano Latina studies. So there's a lot of firsts. There's a lot of firsts at UCI, and it's really remarkable to be at a campus that holds so much intellectual leadership and individual power. And so as a dean, my approach has always been, it's no different than what it was at UC San Diego, where I was an administrator. I was an associate vice chancellor for equity, diversity, and inclusion, but it hasn't been different from then. It's what I bring with me, it's my core, and that is to lead with integrity, to lead with a passion for justice, and to lead with purpose. And so that's kind of how I lead from the center. As long as I lead with those ideals in mind, I know I can look myself in the mirror and move a school forward, right, into its next chapter. And that's what I'm doing currently. And I can tell you, there's never a dull moment. For those of you that are leaders in the room, you know that there's always so much happening. But I have been really proud to lead a school that is currently, and I know it's all supposed to be about me, but as a leader, you can't make it all about you. Lead a school that is the highest ranked school on this campus. The School of Education, I have to give a nod, is just, it has an array of incredibly impressive scholars. They have amassed $131 million in active grant funding. They have been ranked we have been ranked number 8, the number 8 School of Education. Coming in, though, they were already well on this pathway, and Deborah Vandell was just such an amazing first dean, and she set the school on this path. Again, another strong woman leader, set the school on this path to be positioned for this moment. And so we are ranked number 8. We are number 4 among public schools of education. We are number 3 in the nation in funded research, and the number 8 ranking is global. And then we're number 9 in funded research. We fund our graduate students. We consistently work to fund all of our graduate students. I am working diligently to fund our master's and teaching students, right, our MAT candidates. We have incredible initiatives underway like OCEAN, which is the Orange County Educational Advancement Network. We have Eclipse, which is an environmental and climate justice initiative. And then we have the Teacher Academy as 3 kind of core initiatives. But we also are partners with the Center for Educational Partnerships. We are a school that has been engaged in meaningful partnership work under the leadership with CFEP's leadership and leader that's here today, Dr. Stephanie Reyes-Tuccio. And so to be part of a school that is engaged in research, that is engaged in research practice partnerships, that's committed to transforming education differently for the next generation is not only an incredible honor, but it's a responsibility I take very seriously. And so, again, it's just been such an amazing experience. We just wrapped up our 10th year. And so we have 10 ambitious goals going forward. I will not pull out the strategic plan, but I just have to say in this moment, in this time, it is not only just this tremendous opportunity for the school as we're shifting and changing, it's just an incredible moment for our school to take stock, not only of where we've been, but where we're headed. Okay. And then, of course, it's a happy coincidence that my mentor is across the way at the law school in Professor Rachel Moran. And so at this point in my career, it's so important for me to be able to mentor not only other women leaders, but students and grad students, while also engaging in research that benefits UCI, the UCHSI collaborative, and the UC system. And so I'm going to do one thing that's a shameless plug, but it's on the video, and that is there is an upcoming webinar, and this pairs on my system level work. I've been engaged with other scholars to create a blueprint for the UC system for becoming a premier HSI research institution system. And so what we've done is explored what would it take for our UC campuses, and our chancellor's very involved in this. He's very involved in the HSRU initiative nationally. He is a national leader on this topic, and so to be engaged in this effort, we have a publication that's coming out the same day, January 31st. And so this is part of my own research agenda. And so how do I pair as a leader? How do I give back as a leader? You know, the insights we've learned, the insights our collaborations have learned, and the insights we as a school are kind of testing out every day with our faculty. And so this publication will be featured in that upcoming webinar as we attempt to give insight for the UC system as we transform, right? Demography is already telling us where we're headed, but how do we do so thoughtfully? How do we do so where we're prioritizing the needs of our students, not only our undergrads, but our graduate students and our postdocs, and the criticisms that they presented to us all along? How do we do that in a thoughtful and critical way that ultimately serves California? So that's the webinar that's upcoming. And then I'd like to, just wrap up with 2 things. One is the overarching theme of so what matters to me and why. And I already shared with you some very deep and personal moments within my family and my family's history and our deep rooted commitment to service. Every single one of my siblings is college educated, and that's a testament to my parents. Every single one of my siblings gives back to the community. I have a brother who's an administrator in higher education at a community college and a leader in the region. I have another brother who works for a wine distribution company, but also is a wine sommelier, and also helps to run a nonprofit, a scholarship fund in my sister's name. And so we're deeply committed as a family. And so my center is my family, and I think that they give me the will to persist as a leader when, some of those, days are rough. The second is community. What matters to me is community, because why are we here, right? Why are we here? We're all here to ensure that mobility is possible, that the American dream belongs to each and every one of us, that the hopes and dreams of our forefathers, wherever they may have come from, whatever country they may have come from, this soil or a foreign soil, that those ideals are upheld and held true. And then the third is that I engage in both meaningful and impactful work, that not only through my research, but through the alliances and collaborations I build, that I'm having an impact on those around me. And so I'd like to leave you with a quote, because I'm close to time. I'm getting the looks. This is a quote that I refer to. It's an artist from San Antonio. And I'm going to just start it. And this quote was given to me in a card when I graduated from undergrad. And I used to carry this card everywhere, from graduate experience to graduate experience. So now the card is tattered. It's just torn up because it has survived moving around with me. But I go back to that card and this quote often, because when you need to be grounded as a leader, you have to go back to that center. So here's the quote I want to leave you all with. And it's something I resonate with. I hope my achievements in life shall be these: that I will have fought for what is right and fair, that I will have risked for that which mattered, that I will have given help to those who were in need, and that I will have left the earth a better place for what I've done and who I've been. And that's by C. Hop. So I want to leave you with that quote as you go about your day, and I'm just so honored to be in community with you all as you've heard what matters to me and why this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Contreras. So do any of you have questions for the Dean? Okay. And you have to wait for the mic because we are videotaping it, and this is the way that it will be caught on tape.
Well, thank you very much for that inspiring talk. My question is, you said that you switched majors 8 different times. How did you land on education? What attracted you to do what you do now? I mean, what was the hook that really made you land on this?
It was entirely by chance. If there are undergrads in the room, please cover your ears. Or online, the welcome online audience. Thank you, online audience, for engaging in this talk. Honestly, I had taken 18 units, 19 units. I thought that my UC education was like academic Disneyland. Imagine going to a school in Norwalk and Santa Fe Springs where you didn't have access to AP classes. I didn't have access to higher level curriculum. And so I wanted to soak up as much as I could. And so for lack of a better analogy, it really was academic Disneyland for me. And so I went to my counselor and said, it's me again, because she knew me and they all knew me, because I would go around to them and ask their advice. And I said, okay, it's end of my junior year. I am poised to graduate within 4 years because I went to community college every single summer. Thank you to the California community colleges to help me graduate in 4 years of my undergraduate degree. And by the time that I was a junior, I had enough for 2 majors and a minor. So it was really, and I said, okay, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. Those are my 2 majors, and this is my minor. And so I double majored in history and mass communications. I studied protest movements. I studied the Zoot Suit riots in the 1940s because it was very personal for me, with my family having experienced the Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles, my grandmother having been deported back to Mexico, even though she's a US citizen and 4th generation Chicana. And then mass communications, I mean, at Cal, the journalism degree was amazing, and so I loved hearing how they dissected the news. And then I minored in education. So it was just quite a bit of courses I had taken by that time, and those ended up being my major. And so I was one of those that covered my bases. And so I applied to policy school for graduate school, I applied to education school, and I applied to law school. Again, wanting to cover my bases because I was interested in so many different things. It's not something I'd recommend to the undergrad today, right? Because it's a very different reality. But I think that there's joy in not being so confined in my academic pursuits. And so this is part of not being exposed earlier to those conversations. I mean, my children, for example, already know what they want to study. It's a bit scary. My son already knows from kindergarten he's wanted to be an engineer. At this point, he's in middle school and is deciding which level of engineer, which field, subfield within engineering. It's a very different world today, and that speaks to the highly competitive nature of admissions. Yes, okay, so the follow-up question is how did I get to education? Going to graduate school, well, exploring, I was always involved in undergraduate research programs. So not only was I a participant, but I was also a mentor. And so I was, in undergrad, one of my jobs was to advise students, my peers, in writing. And so I was a writing mentor, and so I knew I was a very good writer, and so I thought teaching and the world of education was probably a good fit because I was good at it. And my peers, this is how I came to apply to Harvard. My peers were athletes, were scholars. There was just a wide range. But they were getting into Princeton, to Harvard, to Yale. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that was possible for me. But then a light clicked because if I'm their mentor and if I'm their writing tutor, I should probably be thinking about those Ivy League institutions as well. And so that's how I came to that. Yes.
Day by day, what do you enjoy about being a dean?
So day by day, what do I enjoy about being a dean? I really enjoy the ability to work with other scholars, to hear the cutting edge ideas that are happening in the field, and to have conversations about what's possible. Just this notion of what's possible. What are we doing? What we could be doing differently? How can we impact the region differently? Thank you. That's a great question.
Hi, Dean Contreras. Thank you so much. This is just so wonderful. Thank you for being so vulnerable. I know you're so proud to be part of an HSI and that we're an HSI. Can you share one or two things that you'd want faculty and staff to know to better support and retain our students so that we're not only admitting them, but making sure that we're doing our part to make sure that they graduate?
That's a great question. It's something that we are working towards every day. For our faculty and staff, number one is to work to meet students where they are, to listen, right? To listen to our students, to have those individual conversations, to find out what they're interested in and good at, to really believe in their potential, really believe in their potential. I think one of the experiences that I've had, many experiences, of course, through different institutions, but it always surprised me when being underestimated. It always surprised me that people were shocked at the work product. And, my mom would tell me, Mija, that's your superpower, because then you could just, blow them out of the water, but, and just really wow someone. But believe in their potential, and all of our students here, and this is what I give a lot of addresses, especially to our incoming students, whether it's the Bienvenida or other welcome addresses, especially at the start of the year. And I always tell them, you are one in 150,000 applicants. You were meant to be here in this time and in this moment. And we need those messages more and more for our students. And so just to understand at face value, everyone who is here is meant to be here and they're highly qualified.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Francis. You're just really an amazing individual, and we're very proud to have you as our dean. Just wanted to say that the office or the School of Education has come a long way. I graduated in 1972 from UC Irvine, being taken off the streets of East LA in '68. And I received my teaching credential in 1973 from what was the Office of Teacher Education. And it has grown over so many years because of people like Francis. And I just want to thank you for doing that and for being such a role model for all the Latinos and for everybody involved, because I know that you're more committed to the people that you are leading than you are committed to yourself. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, Dr. Contreras. I see a lot of staff in the room. I myself am a staff member from the Center for Educational Partnerships. Do you see any area where staff can contribute? Maybe we can't contribute to on an academic lens, but how can we contribute to community on campus?
Absolutely, that's a great question. You know, I can take a page from our own experience. You know, one of the things that I think coming into a school after the pandemic, it was kind of this wonky time in early 2022 where people were back, but it was still very guarded because, you know, the rates were so high. I think, and this is a message I've given to our own faculty, in order to better our community, we need to be in community. And so when we have our all-team Wednesdays, to really be present on those all-team Wednesdays. And so we'll have, you know, food where we can be in community. And so for staff, that's one, is, you know, being in community with each other and being supportive of the work. It's easy to get in silos with our work. And then the second is really giving feedback on what staff can offer, right? Our staff on this campus are incredible experts, right? And offer an incredible level of expertise. I mean, honestly, hearing the question that was almost phrased as a comment about serving students and what, you know, how we need to do more because we are an HSI, I feel it. We need to do more. We can always do more, right? The fact that, you know, there are first generation students that may not be succeeding at the same rates as their peers that are, you know, the son and daughters of very affluent, you know, families. We can do more and we need to do more. So pushing ourselves, you know, helping us to look at this data. My staff have put data in front of me and I'm like, okay, what do we need to do about it? What do we need to do about, you know, if we're having challenges with students and feeling, you know, community? Let's underwrite some community building events. Let's think about levers where we can increase communication for them across the aisle. And so really giving that honest and critical feedback and to know that staff voices are valued is so important.
Okay, I think many of you need to get to class or to get back to the office. So thank you again, Dean Contreras. And if you haven't picked up a lunch on the way out, there are some lunches out there. And thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you next month for What Matters to Me and Why. Thank you.